Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. Now just as a little thought experiment, imagine for a minute how different the history of the world would be if when Christopher Columbus arrived in America, the Native Americans had simply killed him and his crew and sunk the ships they came in. And then had done the same thing to anybody else who arrived on these shores. For some reason, the tribes who lived along America's east coast were pretty laid back and did not recognize the threat that the colonizers represented. When the Europeans came and began building settlements here, they just allowed it to happen. They were even helpful in some cases. It wasn't until the settlers began migrating inland that they ran into tribes who decided to resist them. And by then it was way too late. But if the Native Americans had simply massacred anybody who arrived on these shores, then after a while the Europeans probably would have stopped sending out ships out here. If everybody that they sent never came back. So the Europeans would not have realized that there was a new land to settle, and the native population of this country and Canada and Central and South America would all have lived their own history, undisturbed by Europeans. Their cultures would have flourished, and most likely the United States would certainly not exist, nor would Canada or much of the other countries. So the United States, instead of being one nation, would have probably been several different nations, much like Europe is, or stuff like that, based on the tribes that were in certain areas. Now, eventually they might have united, but whether they would have united into one country is pretty doubtful. And there would have been no slave trade, and the Native Americans, their culture was much more nature-oriented, so they probably would have been less abusive to nature than we white people have been. And European history would have been vastly changed too, because all those people who migrated to America would have stayed in Europe. And so there were conflicts that were happening that were causing a lot of the migration to happen here. People came here for, well, for a kind of religious freedom in which they were free to practice their religion, and then they persecuted everybody else. But having to stay in the countries of origin would have meant that there would have had to have been some kind of adjustment. So, of course, I can't say exactly how these histories would have played out, but they would have been much, much different than they are today. And the world would be a much different place than it is today. Now, like I said, this is just a thought experiment, and there are endless numbers of possibilities that could have happened. But the only thing for sure is that there would have been a continent that is currently ruled by white people that would not have been. Thanks for listening. Well, I want to thank you all for watching my videos. But there are certain changes that Google has made to YouTube, which, since I'm a smaller channel, means that I can't monetize my videos. So I found places where I can. So instead of watching my videos here on YouTube, I'd appreciate it if you go either to Patreon or to Top Buzz. They let me monetize videos, and I don't even have to put commercials on. So, if you want to become a patron on Patreon, that's fine. If you don't, you can still watch the videos there. I've just kind of given up on YouTube. YouTube is just a place that I use so that I can put my videos in other places. So, Patreon, Top Buzz, the links are in the description box. Thanks a lot.